On today's World Insight, impressions and insights on the recent Beijing-hosted Global Leaders Meeting on Women from Icelandic President Halla Tomasdottir. In a one-on-one conversation, her story in her own words in breaking the glass ceiling and representing her country well on the world stage. All these in tonight's special She, focused on gender equality and women leadership.
Welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei, our special series She, featuring interviews and discussions about the topics of gender equality and women leadership. The Global Leaders Meeting on Women concluded in Beijing on Tuesday. It rekindled the crucial conversations about gender equality and women's empowerment. Among those at the meeting is Halla Tomasdottir, President of Iceland, the nation's second female head of state, who has long championed women's participation in leadership and innovation. In an exclusive interview with me on Monday, she excitedly reflected upon the important conversations and dialogue taking place at the Global Leaders Meeting on Women in Beijing. She also enlightened our talk by sharing her personal experiences of breaking barriers, seeking common ground as a woman leader in her country and on the global stage. Madam President, what a pleasure to see you in Beijing.
Thank you. It is my pleasure and honor to be here.
When I say Madam President, the pride already arises, seeing women leaders from all over the world coming for this important meeting. Madam President, 30 years ago, the Icelandic president was also a woman. She led the delegation to the Beijing Conference on Women. And 30 years later, you are here with a strong delegation of women. Many of your administration members are women. What is your takeaway and reflection on this event?
Well, I think my first sentiment to share is gratitude to President Xi to actually not only commemorate the event from 30 years ago, where our first democratically elected president as a woman in the world. Our president of Iceland was here with a delegation. But also he really put out a strong speech, made real commitments to advancing women's rights, gender equality. So I want to start with gratitude that for what happened 30 years ago and that we're putting the issue on the agenda today. And I'm very proud to be here as the second woman to serve as president in Iceland. Because that hasn't happened in many places. And we often celebrate the first woman or the first young person, but we often celebrate the first. But it's actually when we do something for the second time that we start to normalize that heads of states can look like this. So I think we also, I'm proud of the fact that in Iceland last year we had 12 candidates run for president, and 6 women, 6 men.
Wow.
75% of the vote went to the female candidates. So I think Iceland is no longer just a pioneer when it comes to gender equality and the leadership of women, but starting to be a beacon of what a world of greater gender balance could look like.
It is in the genes already.
I hope so. Started with our Viking women, I think in some ways they were quite strong and the stories of them probably informed us. But it also really came about, and I mentioned a bit in my speech this morning, on October 24th in 1975, so 50 years ago, another thing to commemorate this year, women in Iceland decided to do something quite extraordinary. They took the day off. They did no work, not in the home or in the work market for those who held positions there. And nothing really worked in Iceland that day. And that was sort of brought our country to a standstill, but also helped us.
The understanding.
Yeah, it changed the course of our nation. I'm absolutely convinced that it did. It certainly changed the course of my life. And it was just 5 years later that we were first to elect a woman as president. So I think it's been the solidarity, courage and joy that women standing together experience that has brought Iceland to not only a global leadership position when it comes to closing the gender gap, but actually global leadership positions across quite many metrics for a small nation. And I think it's largely due to the fact that we have fully tapped into all of our population to lead and contribute to developing our economy and our society. And it's been a good story.
Your administration is full of women leaders.
Yes.
Many of the ministers, right?
Yes, we have probably women leading on most important posts in Iceland right now.
Foreign minister, for example, environment.
Prime Minister and head of universities, head of police. We are quite a women's leadership country at the moment.
Many wonder what is it like to have mainly women leaders in some of the most important positions. No offense to men, by the way. It's just how does this relationship work in the policy making and also in the governance?
Well, I mean, this is a reality that is less than a year old, the current reality. So I think we will need to look, in a few years' time. But my sense is that there is a sense of shared leadership when women work together. And I think that's a good form of leadership.
It's not a competition.
Well, I think there's always human beings, the whole economy, the whole of history has been made up around the idea that competition is the driver of everything. But I think now we are facing a world of great challenges and we need to rethink what good leadership looks like. And I think collaboration is actually the new leadership word. And I think it may come more naturally to many women. But I don't think we are trained for it that well. I think most of us are taught, whatever we learn, that the world is a competitive one, and it certainly is. But a collaborative world is needed to tackle climate change, to tackle distrust, inequality, multilateralism, peace. So I think it's a good thing to have at least a gender-balanced leadership, which is very much what I believe in. So I think balance is best in this as everything else.
Collaboration is not a given.
It is
We
not.
have to work hard for it. I saw you walking down the aisle with the Chinese President Xi Jinping and the Chinese First Lady, Professor Peng Liyuan, together with other dignitaries attending today's conference. What were going through your dialogues with one another? How are you looking at together collectively what is going on today? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many stories from this wonderful day here in Beijing, and President Xi and Professor Peng have just welcomed me with such warmth, and the whole of the community here, and so deeply grateful for that. We spoke a lot on a personal note, which I can refer to, but we also talked about the great big challenges the world faces.
The big picture first, let's do
Yeah,
it.
the climate emergency is top of mind for China and Iceland alike, and it should be top of mind for all of us. And I think it's quite extraordinary that one of the biggest countries in the world and one of the smallest countries in the world are actually collaborating on the geothermal revolution, which can be such a big part of solving the green transition we all need to go through. And so we spoke about things like that, and we spoke about how we bring about a more peaceful world in a world where conflict is rising in so many corners of the world. And then we spoke about the fact that it is the people-to-people connections that build the trust base that is necessary to then do trade, to then stand united against big challenges. So one shouldn't necessarily detach the personal connections and the connections we need to make to deal with crises that cross borders, that cross genders, that cross generations. And we're in a world where we have very many big interdependent challenges to work on. And I think friendship that is being established since they visited Iceland and to my visit now could be very important for furthering even better bilateral relations between our countries. and some joint work on tackling the world's biggest challenges.
Indeed, I want to go into details of some of the
Yes.
areas you just mentioned. Madam President, on green development,
Yes.
China has been a pioneering and having a can-do spirit. So is Iceland. You are small, only geographically, but big at heart. Yet we have seen some setbacks in terms of awareness of climate change, in terms of governmental and governance policies to work climate change among some of the biggest economies in this world. What is your reaction to the reality, and how do you think, Iceland and China, very different, and yet can work together on these areas?
It's very clear to a small country like Iceland that just working on our own national performance isn't going to make a big dent in the problem. But working with China to reach its goal, now carbon neutrality 2060, Iceland has a goal of getting there at 2040. 2050 is where we need the whole world to have come there for us to have good prospects. So I think if we can help work with one of the biggest countries in using what we have done for decades now, geothermal, as part of the solution, we will have made a greater contribution to climate change than we can by thinking just by ourselves. And in many ways, I think what Iceland is good at is creativity and early stage innovation and piloting and trying new things. We're quick, we're small, we're creative. China is one of the best, if not the best, in scaling, executing, and frankly, on most promises I've seen China make, they tend to deliver long-term against those promises and often ahead of schedule. To peak the use of fossil fuels by 2030 and to have reduced it by 7 to 10% by 2035. I was hopeful, if not optimistic, that you would deliver on that and maybe even more than that.
But this is in China's 14th five-year plan, which is coming to a wrap this year.
Yes.
And for the 15th five-year plan, many have been talking about this will be one of the emphasis as well.
Yes.
So it seems, as you know, China always have a five-year plan and do accordingly.
Well, I think the rest of the world could learn a lot from China when it comes to long-term planning and thinking. I think maybe one of the problems we have in the world is short-termism. In business, in the political cycle, it's very hard to do transformational leadership on such short time perspectives. You need long-term planning and execution when it comes to grand challenges like climate change. They're not happening in 4-year cycles. This is a much bigger picture. So I respect, and I shared that with your president, I have a lot of respect for how China does that. Now, at the same time, I have to say that these challenges they're not getting any easier, because we are living in a world where we're finding it increasingly hard to find common ground. Yes. And we're increasingly pulling apart. And I'm hoping some of those efforts will lead to us finding more sanity again and finding enough inner peace to pursue what we know we need to do.
We also see the world, as you mentioned, Madam President, multilateralism has been challenged as a result of fragmentation. Now we also see global governance being threatened, especially the system being established since World War II. Now, how do you see it can be, the sense of confidence, at least, can be updated to move us to the next stage of collaboration?
I think one of the words or practices that we have lost sight of in this tension-driven world is dialogue. And the United Nations and all of its multilateral framework was founded to be a place of dialogue on global challenges that individual countries could not tackle alone. So I think in-person dialogue needs to be doubled down on right now. I think in those dialogues we need to try to bridge the gender gaps, the generational gaps, because the young people, they see this future. They are ready for it. Yeah. It's mostly us who are older who are maybe not fast enough in changing ourselves. And then, of course, we need to close the global gap in these dialogues. I think we have been living in different echo chambers also across the world. And whether it's east-west or north-south or all of those axes, I think we need to close them better in our dialogue on all of these challenges that we're facing. But I'm certain if we close the gender gap, the generational gap, and the global gap in the conversation about the world we live in and what kind of world we want to live in and what is needed for us to get there, we will get there.
Whether dialogue will satisfy our national interest, that's another question. And sometimes the national interest argument has been shifting from day one to day two. So you can see that being reflected in some of the trade policies by certain nations. So how do you see that, Madam President? Because in your daily governance practices, you have to deal with these crises. You have to deal with these realities.
Well, I'll be very honest. I think this push towards national interest is also going to require dialogue. I think there are populations within many countries that feel very left behind by the institutions and systems we created. Financial inequality within countries and between countries is an issue. And some of the behaviors that are happening in the global West or the global North are hitting the global South the hardest. And there's lack of justice in that. So I understand why anger and tensions and maybe I want to just take care of myself and not the rest of the world is on the rise. It's understandable. It's people in despair, maybe even fear, that are feeling like we need to put ourselves number one. But at the end of the day, climate change does not ask for national borders, and it's going to hit us all hard. We have planetary boundaries that keep our planet in balance. There are 9 of them. We are at or have surpassed 6 or 7 out of the 9. So our planet is endangered, and it doesn't matter if I'm from Iceland or China, it's going to hit me.
Madam President, I see you are looking very long-term, looking strategically of how things need to be resolved. But the day-to-day crisis is happening. You have to deal with trade, you have to deal with economic relationship, not just within the European continent, but beyond. So how do you and your colleagues are dealing on a day-to-day basis some of the latest challenges other national leaders are also facing today?
When in lack of answers, I try to go inside. I try to really sit with a term I call generational equality. I think I've always been passionate about gender equality, and I'm certain that a world with more women leading with the way women lead is a better world. But generational equality is what I get up for in the morning. What do I mean by that? What kind of a world awaits my children and my grandchildren? That's the time horizon that I try to sit with when I decide what I put my energy into. And one of the most alarming facts I see today, and I see many crises, is the deterioration of mental health of young people. Growing anxiety, growing depression, growing loneliness. This worries me more than anything, because I think if we are okay, we have the capacity, the creative capacity to work with others and come up with solutions to our other challenges. But if we're not okay, the world will not be okay. So one of the things that I prioritize in my work is to meet and bring a lot of young people into the conversation about the state of the world, the challenges we face, and empower them to work with me and others in coming up with solutions. And I sometimes say hope is a verb with its sleeves rolled up. You need to get involved and do something if you're losing hope, and once you do that, hope grows. And I consider myself a stubborn optimist who believes in the imagination and ingenuity of people, and that we will come together and solve these challenges, even if right now it feels pretty dark. In my own life, in the development of Iceland, in the development of the world, the darkest hours are always right before sunrise, aren't they?
Your country, beautiful Iceland on the European continent. We see Europe now trying to deal with a lot of issues. Of course, you're not part of the EU.
We're part of the European Economic Area.
Indeed,
so, yes.
indeed. How does Iceland try to find its GPS in the very complex, ever-changing regional and global landscape?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because I sometimes think that what is missing in today's stormy seas for both individuals, countries and regions alike is a moral compass, or a GPS, if you will. For Iceland, it's pretty embedded into our DNA that we are one of the oldest democracies in the world. We founded it in 930, and we came together in dialogue to solve our differences. And this is during a Viking era where it often was difficult, and if not violent, but we managed to build our countries like that. Women have always been strong, so gender equality has for a long time just been in our DNA. We started using sustainable energy, renewable sources of energy way before most others. And we are generally peaceful and have stood for peace. So I think the values and principles of Iceland are pretty clear to its people. And we have great friendships in the Nordic region with our other Nordic countries. We are what I like to call the well-being countries, countries that place the well-being of people and planet at the heart of how they develop their economies and societies. And so I would dare to say that the Nordic countries enjoy great reputational capital and have a lot of soft power in the world. So many look to us to have societies and economies that work well, the highest GDP per capita in the world, but also the happiest, the healthiest, and some of the other metrics that also matter. But what many people don't realize is the Nordics together, if you put the 5 Nordic countries together, we are the 10th largest economic area in the world. So we also have hard power. Maybe one of the things that I think about the hardest these days is how can the Nordics collectively sit at more tables, share their experiences with building societies that place the well-being of people and planet at the heart of their development. How can we share those stories more powerfully in the world and for the world?
A lot of Chinese have tremendous respect for the Nordic countries, of what you have achieved and what you are trying to strive for in the world. Having said that, though, we see China also try to bring its contribution to the world through global development initiative, global governance initiative, global civilizations initiative, and the list goes on. How do you see your country can work with China and others in order to deal with immediately some of the questions that you have beautifully illustrated, Madam President? How will this trip be a new starting point for your country and China together?
Yeah, it's very interesting that Iceland was the first European country to recognize China as a market economy, and we did the free trade agreement for over 10 years ago, first European country to do that. So I think there is this trust and positive, constructive bilateral relationship. And I think the promise that comes out of this meeting, where we have actually signed a joint statement to work together to advance geothermal energy as part of the green solutions in general, and we put a gender equality angle into that joint statement from your president and myself after our meeting. So I think we are already finding a way where we have an issue that the world needs, and we are working with a small creative country that has some experience and know-how and some entrepreneurship, but with the country that has the ability to do things at scale. So I think that's a very powerful example of how we can bring something more powerfully to the world by working together. I would hope that we would look for other opportunities to do so. I think about the seaweed revolution. We are going to reinvent how we eat and feed livestock and how we create packaging instead of plastics. And Iceland is a test bed of algae and seaweed where we could try some things, but maybe work with China to build out those things so we don't have to continue to ruin our oceans with plastics. And so I think there's many opportunities here, but it all starts with us seeing and recognizing each other and treating each other with respect. And that is what I am experiencing here. And I hope that is something that Chinese people can say they experience as well. But I think it's a good model for a small country to work with a big country. Small country uses its strengths, in our case, an entrepreneurial mindset, a solution-oriented mindset, a country that enjoys having had early leadership in some important areas to address the problems we have, and a country that excels at executing and doing long-term plans and delivering against them, and sometimes better than them. So I hope we will explore more of those. I think Iceland is an interesting partner for China, and it's a gateway into Europe. The Arctic is opening up, for better or for worse. It's because of climate change, but I think that may change shipping routes and some other opportunities that maybe none of us have fully realized the consequences of. So I am hoping, and we've even spoken today about what if a direct flight was available between Shanghai and Iceland? What would that mean for tourism, trade, and other opportunities for cultural and people-to-people interactions? But I certainly find myself proud in this country to feel that such a great country as China is, with all of your rich culture and traditions and unbelievable performance in so many areas, should look to us small Nordics with respect. And I think I'm humbled by that. No, I think we all are. We are small but big-hearted, as
Indeed.
You said.
Absolutely. My final question, related to 30 years ago, 30 years now, and also related to leadership today in a very fragmented world, how important it is and how to maintain that independent mind and that strong-minded characteristics of your country as the leader of Iceland.
I was 11 years old when we were first in the world to elect a woman as president, and I will never forget that, because to me she was a single mother. She was a strong role model for me. So I think the way I try to approach my role in Iceland and in the world is to be for others, younger people in particular, what she was for me. A lighthouse of hope and possibility and purpose. I try to bring young people into as many conversations as I host as possible, because I feel like they open everybody's hearts, and I feel like I become a better version of myself, and so do others when we listen to the young. I try to think every morning when I wake up that I put courage on one shoulder and joy on the other, so I'm choosing my mindset when I wake up, even if the world feels quite impossible. I believe in my heart that I owe it to the next generation, and that it is possible for Iceland to be a lighthouse of possibilities in a world that at times feels quite impossible. And so I will continue to wake up with that mindset, because somebody did it for me. So I think I'm trying to pay it forward.
I see the lights in your eyes when you are talking about this and the way forward. Madam President, I'm moved, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the warm welcome in China.
And that is my exclusive interview with President of Iceland on the sideline of Global Leaders Meeting on Women. That's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of my team. Thanks for being with us. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.